Or maybe they should have gone to Amazon and buy some testicles online. Instead of just saying, sure, I'll just show you the phone records of a sitting United States senator on the basis of an administrative subpoena. Now, do you have copies of the subpoena applications?
Yes, Senator, I can't discuss anything regarding this.
You can't even tell me if you have copies?
I can't discuss any of this.
All right, when does it get swept under the rug? Okay? Because I think you're going to get pushed back from all quarters. I think the telecommunication companies are going to be all over you like a bad rash because they've got liability here for just turning over these records when they knew what was going on. I think I know that, Pam. But have you interviewed Secretary Lutnick?
No, Senator.
Do you plan to?
If he wants to talk to the FBI or the FBI wants to talk to him, that is more than on.
Don't you think you ought to talk? General, welcome. Let's suppose that I'm appointed special counsel at the Department of Justice, and I go to the telecommunication companies, the phone companies. Let's single out AT&T, and I say, look, I know you're busy, but I want to see a copy of the phone records of a sitting United States senator. They're not going to just give them to me, are they?
No, Senator, of course not.
In fact, they're probably going to ask me what planet I just parachuted in from, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
They're going to tell me to come back with a subpoena, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. What do I have to show in that subpoena to get those phone records of a sitting? Did I mention it was a sitting United States senator? I can't remember. What do I have to show to get the phone records of a sitting United States senator?
Yes, Senator, there were actually 8 sitting United States senators.
Yeah, I heard that.
And you would have to have cause.
I'm sorry, what do I have to show?
You would have to have cause to get the
Good
subpoena.
cause or probable cause?
Probable cause.
Okay. Probable cause, or if it's a subpoena duces tecum, good cause, to show what?
You would need good cause for a subpoena duces tecum, and what you would have to show is that you believed a crime had been committed, or there was a possibility of a crime, or that could lead to other crimes. We frequently, in criminal enterprises, subpoena cell phones.
By the sitting United States senator?
Senator, they would have to have believed you were part of a criminal conspiracy, is my understanding.
Would a judge have to sign off on it? On the subpoena?
Yes, Senator. Well, for a subpoena duces tecum, Jack Smith probably took it straight to the judge.
Now, the phone companies, particularly their general counsel, if they're worried about civil liability, even with a subpoena to get the phone records of a sitting United States senator. Did I mention it was a sitting United States senator?
Yes, Senator.
The general counsel for that phone company, let's say AT&T, they have the right to seek to quash that subpoena, don't they?
Phone companies frequently do that.
Yeah. And a smart general counsel for that phone company is going to call the sitting United States senator and say, would you like to weigh in on this? Would you like me to quash the subpoena? We're talking about invading someone's privacy here by a sitting United States senator. Could the general counsel for the phone company do that?
Well, Senator, if they believe that a crime could have been committed, they could not tip off the person who committed the crime. Again, I can't comment on details of this particular case.
I'm just asking you theoretically.
I've never seen you commit a crime, Senator Kennedy.
But let's suppose, okay, they didn't want to tip off the sitting United States senator. But the phone company And the general counsel for the phone company, or companies, if there were more than one involved, could say, you know, this is serious as an aneurysm. This is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. This is a sitting United States senator. So general counsel would likely advise the CEO, well, you need to file a motion to quash. The telephone companies could have contested those subpoenas, could they not?
Hypothetically, yes, I can't talk about the facts of this particular case.
We're talking hypothetical.
Senator subpoenas are issued all the time through phone companies working with the general counsel.
But they can file a motion to quash.
They could, yes.
Yeah.
In any case.
And if they should have filed a motion to quash, and a reasonable person would have filed a motion to quash, because this is a sitting United States senator, and they didn't file a motion to quash, they would incur civil liability, wouldn't they?
Senator, typically phone companies follow a subpoena from a United States attorney.
I know they do, but they don't have to.
They could challenge it, Senator.
Yeah. And if they don't challenge it, they better have a damn good reason. Right? Right?
Senator, I can't talk about the facts of this particular
This is just
case.
a hypothetical.
In general, hypothetically, Senator, maybe they didn't recognize any of the names of the 8 sitting United States senators.
Hypothetically.
That was a joke.
Or maybe they should have gone to Amazon and buy some testicles online. Instead of just saying, sure, I'll just show you the phone records of a sitting United States senator on the basis of an administrative subpoena. Now, do you have copies of the subpoena applications for
Yes,
these
Senator,
8
Senator, I can't discuss it.
Right here is where the pressure really locks in. Notice what's happening. Kennedy isn't making wild accusations. He's building a legal framework step by step. Probable cause, judicial approval, the right to challenge subpoenas. He's laying out exactly how this process is supposed to work. And then comes the pivot. If all of these safeguards exist, how did the phone records of 8 sitting senators get accessed without resistance? Bondi keeps retreating to, I can't discuss that. But that's the tension. The more detailed the process becomes, the more glaring the silence looks. So the real question becomes, is this about protecting an investigation or avoiding
Anything regarding this
You can't
case
even
with
tell me
you.
if you have copies?
I can't discuss any of this.
All right,
with
when are
I'm
you
sorry.
going to, General, when are you going to be able to discuss it?
I can't discuss whether there is or is not a pending investigation,
I understand,
Senator. This
but
was
let's
just
assume
brought to light
if
by
there is a
Director
pending
Patel.
investigation, I don't want this to get swept under the rug, okay? Because I think you're going to get pushed back from all quarters. I think the telecommunication companies are going to be all over you like a bad rash because they've got liability here for just turning over these records when they knew what was going on. I think some FBI agents may have some liability here. I think a special counsel might have some liability here. If I were your special counsel and you had appointed me and I wanted to get the records of a sitting United States senator, is that something you would expect me to tell you as Attorney General of the United States?
They better have.
Yeah.
And
Do we know in this instance of the 8 sitting United States senators if they told Attorney General Garland?
Senator, I just learned about this very recently, as did Director Patel, and we cannot discuss the details. I don't know many of the details.
Well, maybe we ought to get Attorney General Garland here. Do you know if the special counsel told FBI Director Wray? Is that something? Let me put it another way. If I were your special counsel and you were the director of the FBI and I'm trying to get the phone records of a sitting United States senator, did I mention it was a sitting United States senator? Is that something that you would expect me to tell you as director of the FBI?
In general, I would believe the FBI would help execute this to the businesses.
Okay, I want to switch to another subject in the 12 minutes that I have left, since everybody else got to go over. I've got to ask you about this, General. Secretary Howard Lutnick on October 1 gave an interview to the New York Post about Mr. Epstein. And he described Mr. Epstein as, quote, the greatest blackmailer ever, close quote. Have you reviewed that transcript of that interview?
I have not reviewed the transcript, but I saw the clip of it.
Okay. It appears that Secretary Lutnick was Mr. Epstein's next door neighbor. In fact, their townhomes shared a wall. And the reporter that was talking to Mr. Lutnick, she asked how other prominent men could have been associated with Epstein when Mr. Lutnick could immediately sense that he was a, quote, pervert. And then Secretary Lutnick said, or rather the reporter said, did they see it and ignore it? Do you remember that from the interview?
I do.
And Commerce Secretary Lutnick said, no, they participated. And then Commerce Secretary Lutnick goes on to say, quote, that's what his MO was. You know, get a massage, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume, was a video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever, blackmailed people. That's how he had money, end quote. Is that true?
Senator, as our July memo said, we did not uncover evidence. This case has gone through 3 administrations, as well as former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta.
I know that, Pam. But have you interviewed Secretary Lutnick?
No, Senator.
Do you plan to?
If he wants to talk to the FBI or the FBI wants to talk to him, that is more than on.
Don't you think you ought to talk to him after this interview?
Senator, if Howard Lutnick wants to speak to the FBI and if Director Patel wants to speak to Howard Lutnick, absolutely.
This exchange is powerful not because of a single explosive moment, but because of how methodically the pressure builds and what that reveals about the system itself. Start from the beginning. Kennedy doesn't come in swinging emotionally. He does something far more effective. He reconstructs the rules. Step by step, he walks through how a subpoena works, what probable cause means, what a judge must approve, and what rights even a phone company has to challenge that request. This isn't theater. It's structure. And that structure matters, because once it's clearly laid out, any deviation from it becomes impossible to ignore. And that's exactly where the tension comes from. Because as Kennedy builds that framework, Bondi's responses don't evolve with it. They stay limited, cautious, and increasingly narrow. I can't discuss that. I just learned about it. I can't confirm. At first, those answers sound procedural. But as the questions get sharper, they start to feel like barriers instead of explanations. The most revealing moment isn't loud, it's quiet. When Kennedy asks a direct, simple question, do you have the subpoena applications? Not what's in them. Not classified details. Just whether they exist in her possession. And even that gets blocked. That's the turning point. Because in any system built on law, paperwork is everything. The paper trail is the accountability. If you can't confirm the existence of the documents, you're not just withholding information, you're disconnecting the process from oversight. Then the conversation expands, and it gets even more uncomfortable. Now we're not just talking about process, we're talking about consequences. Legal liability for telecom companies. Potential exposure for FBI agents. Questions about whether leadership was even informed. And again, the same pattern holds. Detailed concerns met with limited answers. But what really deepens the impact is the shift into the Epstein discussion. Because here, the issue isn't secrecy, it's attention. A cabinet-level figure makes a serious claim in a public interview, and the response is, I saw the clip, but I haven't reviewed the transcript. That's not a legal limitation. That's a prioritization issue. And Kennedy zeroes in on it with a simple, almost obvious question. Shouldn't you talk to him? That's the broader takeaway from this entire exchange. It's not just about what the government can't say. It's about what it chooses not to pursue, not to confirm, and not to clarify. And when you connect all of this together, a pattern emerges. A system where procedures exist, but their application becomes unclear. Where oversight is technically possible, but practically limited. Where responsibility is distributed, but accountability feels distant. That's why moments like this matter. Not because they provide all the answers, but because they expose where the answers stop. And for viewers watching this, the question becomes unavoidable. If clarity breaks down at this level, at the level of senators, subpoenas, and federal agencies, what does that mean for everything below it? That's the real weight of this exchange. If you found this breakdown valuable, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this is normal legal caution or something deeper? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more sharp, no-nonsense political analysis like this.